Welcome to the Online Success Journey Podcast, your opportunity to discover and learn from entrepreneurs like yourself. This is not your typical podcast, but a place where you can get the real story and find out how real people encounter speed bumps and detours, but journey through to find success. Now here's your host for the Online Success Journey Podcast, Patience.
Hello everyone and welcome to Online Success Journey. This is episode 111. Are you ready to join the clan? Today we have Joe Valley. Joe has built and bought and sold his own web-based business and now acts as advisor and the director of brokerage service for Quiet Light Brokerage. Hello Joe.
Hi Patience. Good to be here.
Thank you for coming. I know the clan is anxious to hear your story, so let's get started with the basics. Can you tell my clan a little bit about your background, about what you did before you started your own online business? Take us right up to the last job or business before you were online.
Sure, happy to. I've been an entrepreneur off and on since I was a little boy, and it went down the path of getting a real job, and at one point loved it, to be honest with you. There was a time when I would get into work early so that I could prove I was working harder and smarter than everyone else, and I'd be the first one there, and at times try to be the last one to leave, and I loved it. And then, time went by, 3 or 4 years, and this one particular company that I worked for, we over that period went from about 17 million in revenue to about 105 million in revenue. I was employee number 34. By the time I left, we had about 1,100. And it got to be a real corporation with real people and real policies and procedures, and I just couldn't stand it. So I went from loving it to hating it. I felt like a worker bee or an ant going to work every day and doing my job, and I just had to leave. So I bailed in 1997 and went out on my own, and I had a small goal of making just a little bit more than I did as an employee at this company. Well, my first year of self-employment, I happened to be the right person in the right place at the right time with the right relationships and bridges that I didn't burn, and I ended up making about 10 times the amount that I made in the job that I had the year before. And that took me on a path to further entrepreneurship. I initially launched a radio direct response media buying agency, which specialized in buying radio time for direct response clients. Those are ones with 800 numbers in the advertisement. Of course, it's internet addresses now. But I did that and then went and within about 12 months launched my own product on radio. Took it to a TV infomercial and then did a second product to radio and TV, and still buying time for other clients all along the way. And in 2002, I got tired of the staff, the overhead, the people, the headaches, the hassle, and took it 100% online and let everyone go except for the original employee. Moved my offices to my home, renovated my basement, and she came to work every day, pulled into the third bay, went downstairs, and we built an online business together. And I built that up fully 100% from 2005 to 2010, strictly online, no other focus on radio media buying or anything like that. And I took it through the best of and the worst of the economy, and came out the other end, honestly, just emotionally tired and burnt out, much like I was when I let everybody go 5 years earlier. And I thought, gosh, I just want to move on. And it didn't occur to me until that time that I actually had a saleable asset, that it really wasn't just how much money am I making every year running this business, how am I doing, and that was the measure. But really, not only how am I doing, but what is the value of this asset that I have, that being this business that I can sell? Didn't occur to me until spring of 2010, sadly. And this is after being an entrepreneur for, 13 years at that point. So I reached out to a number of internet business broker firms because, again, I was 100% internet-based business. And I talked to many of them. Most were just trying to reach through the phone to get their hooks into me for a commission, or at least how it felt. That's how it felt. Until I had a conversation with a gentleman named Mark Doust at Quiet Light Brokerage. whom I now work with and am a business partner with. But Mark's advice was fantastic, and it was all about me. It was, Joe, you got a good business. It's growing again now that the economy is growing, but it's really in your best interest to wait another 6 months. And the reason, Melanie, is because when you look at the value of an internet-based business, it's based off the trailing 12 months. And, months 10, 11, 12 were weak because they were, in 2009. And so the longer I waited, the bigger the trailing 12 months numbers got. And I did just that. I held off for 6 months, reached back out to Mark. And then Jason Yelowitz, who's still with Quiet Light, was assigned as my broker. We listed it. We got it sold. And I took some time off and joined the company as an advisor in 2012. Been here since April of 2012. I'm now a partner at the firm as well.
Wow, what a journey. Very interesting. Why do you do what you do now? Because originally you got burnt out and you said, no, I want to move on. Then you made your own company. But again, you came back and still working in this company as advisor. Why do you do what you do?
Well, I do what I do because I love doing it. At this point in my life, I'm 51 years old. I've had some pretty good successes, and I get to help others with their successes, learn from the mistakes that I made. I glossed over a lot of my failures in that. All you heard were good things. I had years where I made a ridiculous amount of money, and I had years where I lost money. That's the life of an entrepreneur. And now that I've been through all of that I've been through, I love just having conversations with entrepreneurs that are, not ready to exit their business quite yet. I still help those folks, but those that are waiting 6, 12 months, 18 months in advance, and they think, you know what, my plan is to build and exit. And I love helping those folks because it gets them more value for their business. And change the mentality of, oh, wow, I made $100,000 last year. Or, wow, I made $500,000 last year. Because that's only what you made last year. You can multiply that number times, 2, 3, 4 times when it comes to the overall value of your business in a sale transaction. So I love helping people with that. I enjoy it. As part of an entrepreneur, I got burnt out and I moved on to other things. What's interesting with this is that the life cycle of the client relationship is not 7 years. It's much, much shorter. I don't have to get burnt out and move on to something. I get to build that relationship and touch base and see their business grow. Or in some cases, I take a client on right away and help them get their business listed and sold. And it's very satisfying, both financially and emotionally.
Okay. Joe, you've been in business for 13 years before you joined this Quiet Light business as advisory. So let's put the man aside. How did you know you were successful earlier on in your businesses?
I remember being in high school and having that, typical meeting with a guidance counselor, and they say, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And my answer was, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be successful at whatever I do. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. What kind of question is that? I'm 16 years old. I'm going to work hard and I'm going to succeed. I think I saw her eyes spin behind her head like I was a little foolish idiot. But I always wanted to work hard and be on my own. And from mowing lawns as a child to catching night crawlers at night with a flashlight, selling to a fisherman, to starting my own business while I was in college in Boston, Massachusetts. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be in charge of and in control of my own destiny. And I always felt like I was going to be successful at whatever I do. I wasn't sure at what level, Patience, but even now today, I would rather be self-employed and on my own, making, a tenth of what I do and just getting by than, putting on a suit and tie and going to work every day. That's just not my style.
Can anyone be an entrepreneur, or are some people more cut out for it than others, Joe?
Absolutely. More people are cut out for it than others. Not everyone can do it. It takes real tenacity, grit, some serious fortitude and personal strength, because there are times when you want to go for a walk, you want to go play, you want to fool around and not do what you have to do, whether that's accounting, which is just awful sometimes, or take a risk and write a check for an awful lot of money because you have to buy some inventory, or attend a seminar, or be away from the family. Those things are not for everyone. Some people are best suited for getting up and going to the corporate world and having a certain structure and succeed at that incredibly well. One of my best friends is just that guy, and he's fantastic at it. And I couldn't do it. I would not be able to be what he is, which is global head of HR for a worldwide company. It's impressive what he's achieved, and I couldn't do it. On the flip side, he couldn't do what I do. Because I have to build relationships. I have to do things strictly by my own initiative in an environment that is not all that glorifying sometimes. Sometimes he comes to my office and he's like, how do you work from here? Because he's got a big corner office with a fancy table and a view, whereas mine happens to be often wherever I live. I now have a home office as opposed to going out to office every day, but that's a choice, and I enjoy it very much.
What are the top 5 things a business owner should do when considering a sale?
Well, there are a number of things that bring more value, but the most important thing that any entrepreneur should do when they're considering a sale is make sure they have good, clean financials. Now, by that, I don't mean not write off personal things through the business like many entrepreneurs do. I don't mean, not write your car off or your mobile phone or whatever you do in that regard. You can still work with your CPA and running those things through the business, but you have to use proper accounting software, whether it's QuickBooks or Xero or whatever financial accounting software you use. But you need to be able to run a report to see where your net income is and allow your business advisor broker to figure out what your personal expenses are in there and create an add back schedule so that they can determine the value of your business and so that you know what the trailing 12-month numbers are. Because without that, you don't know if you're on the right path to your goal or not. So number one is really good, clean financials. And we could get into discretionary earnings and how to calculate them and things of that nature. But honestly, a lot of people's eyes glaze over the first time they hear it. The other thing is set some goals. Set some goals once you understand the value of your business and how to calculate it. Set some goals in terms of what you want to exit at. Pick a number and march toward that number. Along the way, understand the expenses in terms of a broker fee, in terms of capital gains taxes, so you know what you're left off after all is said and done. But really, really important. You've got to have a goal in mind in order to know that you're marching towards that right objective. The transferability of a business when it comes to an internet-based business is critical. So you got to work on the transferability of a business because your buyer could be anyone, anywhere in the world. I've sold businesses to people in the U.S., in Canada, Hong Kong, Israel, Germany, Argentina, and I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina. So your buyer could be anywhere in the world, and if you've got a transferable business, then that is the key because your buyer could be anywhere. The best time to sell is when things are going well. Remember, I told you that Mark said, Joe, you might want to hold off another 6 months because your numbers are climbing. That not only brought me more value, but it showed a nice upward trend in the business, as opposed to if I had sold in 2009 when things were, going down because the economy was struggling. The last thing you want to do is sell your business when the last couple of months have been your worst. The best thing you could do is sell your business when the last few months have been your best. You've got to account for seasonality, of course. Don't worry about seasonality because if there's seasonality in the business, we just do a year-over-year comparison and compare the most recent month to the same period last year. You want to do things well in advance and think about your personal online profile. You want to make sure that you're being professional. I've had folks come to me and done valuations and their business was, valued in the, anywhere to $500,000 to $1 million range. And when I get an email from them and their Google profile shows up in my inbox, they're in their bathing suit with their shirt off, holding a beer up in their hand. It's not the greatest impression. So you want to think about those things. I can't express enough that when someone is going to stroke a check for $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, they're probably putting their life savings on the line, and they want to trust and respect the person that they're buying that business from. So you, as the business owner, matter so much more in the value of your business than you think. If they trust you, if they feel good about you, if you work well with them, if you work well with your broker in creating a nice package and a great impression, it will bring more value. So there's all sorts of different things. The last thing really, I think, Patience, is entrepreneurs that are buying businesses or people that are becoming entrepreneurs to buy businesses are not looking to just step into your role and have an annuity-based business. They generally want to make an investment and grow that investment and think exit 3-5 years down the road. So they look for growth opportunities. That's another thing you really want to put in place. Classic example is I listed a business in January, and the gentleman and I the gentleman that owned the business and I were talking for about 6 months prior to him selling or listing it for sale. And he had launched a number of new SKUs 6 months into the year. And so by the time January came around, we had about 6 to 7 months worth of traffic and revenue on those SKUs. What that was built-in growth opportunity. He also had identified, he had 9 total SKUs at that time, and he had identified 42 additional SKUs because this particular product line was easy to duplicate SKUs because there were different variations of it that people used all over the world. So he had identified the SKUs for growth opportunities that a new owner could take advantage of. So we couldn't put a dollar value on that, but he had also put 6 new SKUs in place, and it had already been producing revenue and growing. So what we could do there was say, look, this has already, produced X amount of dollars and X percentage of the total revenues in the trailing 12 months. So we could push the value of that business higher because it's a built-in growth opportunity. All you do is sit and wait. You own the business for a year, and that revenue is going to automatically grow. So that, combined with the SKUs that he had already identified, helped sell that business. It was listed at $1.15 million. Went under letter of intent. Literally within 2 weeks, we had a couple of offers and closed just under $900,000, plus the cost of goods saleable inventory on hand at the time of closing. So there's I think I said 5 things for you. You asked 5, that might have been 6, but there's a lot you can do. And the most important one is think about it well in advance. Don't just think, okay, I made $100 today, or I made $100 on that transaction, or $1,000. Think about how to build value in that business to make sure that you're building a real solid business that someone's going to write you a check for someday and put their life savings on the line. You want a real business that someone's going to buy. You don't want a flash in the pan, fly by night business that's 12 months old. You need some age to it, and you need to build real value in order for somebody to make a good, safe investment and for you to be financially rewarded.
Okay. What is Amazon FBA business variations?
The Amazon FBA business valuations are a little lower than a broader-based e-commerce business because it's only one revenue stream. That would be the case if you only had a revenue stream from Zulily or Woot or Daily Deal sites or anything else. The wider base of revenue streams you have, the more different ones you've got coming in, the less risk to the buyer, the less risk, the more they're willing to pay. Year to date, Amazon businesses that we've listed and sold have closed, if they are, let's put it this way, if they are at least 24 months old. The youngest I've sold is 18, but let's go with 24 months because it's a better investment for buyers and you'll get more value. If they are at least 24 months old, are growing, have good growth opportunities, have good clean financials, and are fully transferable, you can do a ballpark valuation range of 2.5 to 3 times, and this is where it gets complicated, 2.5 to 3 times the trailing 12 months seller's discretionary earnings. Boring number, but when you run a profit and loss statement, you get a net income number at the bottom of that profit and loss statement. Well, if you pay yourself a salary, if you run your car through it, your mobile phone, your personal travel, your meals and entertainment, those are personal benefits. Those get added back to the bottom. So we create an add back schedule below the net income. It's the combination of that net income plus the add backs that equal the total seller's discretionary earnings. That 2.5 to 3 times is multiplied times that number. And your list price, if it was $100,000 discretionary earnings for the trailing 12 months, you'd be at $250,000 to $300,000 plus the cost of good saleable inventory on hand at the time of closing, and change that to 2.5 million to 3 million, depending upon the size of your business.
How are our business valued?
They're valued as a multiple of your seller's discretionary earnings. They're all done that way, up to a certain size. So if your business is doing anywhere from $100,000 to $2 or $3 million in trailing 12 months discretionary earnings, and you don't have any proprietary software that Google wants to buy, then you're very likely going to be in the multiple of discretionary earnings valuation model. The higher the discretionary earnings, the higher the multiple in many cases. If your discretionary earnings are north of $1 million, you're probably going to bump right up to the 4-time multiple range. If you're south of that, you're going to be below the 3-time range. In the 3-time range, let's say that. This is for a inventory-based business. If you're selling a software as a service business, you really just jump right to the 4-time range. Every one of those I've listed so far this year is right in that range, and they sell very quickly.
When should we worry about exiting planning, or should we not worry about it until we are in the business for like maybe 5 years or 10 years? When should we really worry about it?
I wouldn't worry about it. I'd think about it, and I'd start thinking about it right away. Most entrepreneurs, true entrepreneurs, don't last 10 years doing one thing. It's a lifetime. I think we are a 7-year creatures at best. So I would start thinking about it right away. If you're going to give it a shot, it doesn't take much to set up, an LLC. So you want to have a proper form, corporate structure. Accounting software is, $25 a month online, and you can hire a good bookkeeper to help you set things up properly through any of the online services like Upwork or freeup.com. That's with 3 E's. Any folks there, get yourself set up properly, spend a few $100 doing it, and then you're halfway there. You're ahead of most folks that are ready, aim, fire type of folks. Ready, fire, aim, I guess I should say. Set up the proper financials and start thinking about it right away is my advice.
Wow. So when should someone really sell or keep the business? Is it when it is not bringing value, you should keep it, or when is it the right time?
It's completely up to the individual. There's no magic number. There's no magic day. There's no magic year. Some people build to sell and get antsy, and if they have to manage more than 2 or 3 contractors, they can't stand it. Others prefer, they set different goals in mind, and they don't mind having a staff of 10 or 12 here in the States, and maybe double that in the Philippines or wherever they might have overseas contractors. So it depends upon the individual and what their personal goals are. It's the only sort of hard and fast rule is give it at least 24 months before you decide to sell the business or list the business for sale. You should certainly, if that's your goal, then you should certainly start talking to someone like myself prior to that. So you sort of have all your ducks in a row in terms of exit planning and getting the maximum value, so you understand it. This podcast alone doesn't begin to give you enough information to make all the decisions on your own on what the value of your business is.
Okay, so you were in business before before joining this one for 13 years. All those 13 years, did you ever have a coach or a mentor?
Never had one that was an official coach or mentor. I listened to Tony Robbins and anyone else I could, find a book or a podcast on, or actually podcasts didn't exist when I started. So they were, programs that you bought from a TV infomercial. And I bought them. And I have a relative that's been very successful, and he was sort of my millionaire next door type of person. And he often gave me some advice. We'd play around the golf, and he'd tell me certain things that I should be doing. And he was a business broker at the time as well. He had success in his life, and he decided to become a business broker for brick and mortar businesses. And really, I remember one time he and I were golfing, and I was not doing what I do today. I was still in the direct response radio business, ready to launch my second product and having challenges with it. And someone was buying a lumber company, and it was $500,000 or so. And what they were going to make was, maybe a third of that. They're going to buy it for $500,000. They're going to make a third of that on an annual basis. And it just struck me as not a great return on investment compared to what I did at that time. Because I could have taken, and I did take, a tenth of that amount of money in my mind, and I spent an awful lot less, and built a radio campaign and tested and bought product and spent an awful lot less than the tenth of that, which was $50,000, and became successful on the radio spot ad campaign, and eventually did a TV infomercial with it, and that's the one I took 100% online and sold in 2010. So yes, I had a mentor. Yes, it was a relative, and no, it was not official. It was he sort of understood that I was an up-and-coming entrepreneur and was happy to share his wisdom with me, which I greatly appreciated and thank him often for.
What is the most valuable thing your relative mentor has told you?
Well, I think I'm going to jump to a different mentor, and that is a gentleman named Stan McCurdy, who was truly the millionaire next door when I was growing up. Stan was an owner. He and his wife were an owner in a company that was a big company in my town in Gardner, Maine, where I grew up. And I was complaining once when I was in high school, when Stan was over playing Chinese checkers with my parents, as they often did on a Friday or Saturday night. And I was working for Stan, or his company, the company that he was a partner in. And I was complaining that I wasn't making enough money. And it was the sad 16-year-old thing. And Stan said in plain English, as he often did, he's like, there's plenty of work. If you want to make more money, work more. You can clean the bathrooms, you can paint the fence, you can sweep the floors, you can move the inventory, you can do this, that, and the other thing. And he listed off a half dozen things. And he straightened me right out to stop whining about not making enough money and take some action and work harder, work more, and make more money. And that was a massive life lesson for me that I still listen to today. If I'm not doing well enough financially, I need to buckle down and focus and put my energies towards that right project. And it's not, sweeping more floors now, of course, or moving more inventory, but different projects and working harder. But no one's going to do the work for you as an entrepreneur. You have to get up and do it yourself every single day. You cannot count on somebody else to do it. You have to do it. And that's the message that Stan gave to me that day.
What is one thing that has contributed to your success so far?
One thing that has contributed to my success so far, I'm going to give that credit to my wife. When her and I, we met when I was an employee at a company called Talk America in Portland, Maine, back in 1996, I guess we met. And somehow she taught me not to burn bridges. And when I left that company, I did so in the best possible terms I could. And I got a phone call, maybe 3 or 4 months after I left. And the person that called me said, "Hey, Joe, Mark and I are starting a call center. We'd like you to buy our time for us." And I said, "Fantastic. I'd love to. Let's talk." And we talked, and we worked out an arrangement where I bought their media for them. And there were many opportunities throughout the end of my career at that company when I could have burnt bridges. And thankfully, she set me straight in many ways. And I didn't with this particular gentleman because I got that phone call and I acted professionally and worked hard for them. That's where I ended up. He called me that fall in 1997, and in 1998, I made 10 times the amount of my own personal goal because I didn't burn a bridge. So it's a very small world, and you got to treat people with respect and care and take care of them as you take care of yourself. And if they make a mistake, admit that, hey, you've made them before too, and it's okay. Let's work together to make sure that it's not going to happen again for all of our benefits. And just try never to burn a bridge. The world is too small. So it's probably the best advice I've been given, and it's from my wife.
Wow, thank her. What keeps you grounded?
Probably my kids. My kids, because I'm just I'm a good nickname. I'm only one short nickname away from them. They'll call me different names. They're 14 and 16. They're both boys, and they're at the stage where they know more than I do. But they keep me pretty grounded, for sure.
Wow. Let's talk about Quiet Light Brokerage. Tell us more about it.
Well, Quiet Light is a firm that is specializing in 100% web-based businesses. We don't work with any brick and mortar based businesses, those that have customers that come to a physical location. It was founded in 2007 by Mark Doust and has done very well. Got a great reputation in the industry. We're one of the leaders in terms of brand, in terms of reputation, and we're unique in one very special way in that each advisor here or broker with that label, each one of us has built, bought, and sold our own web-based businesses. We've walked the walk, we've talked the talk, we've had the successes, we've had the failures, and now we share that experience with others, and we help them get their own businesses sold. Other firms do very well at marketing. We could improve upon that, but we have experience with real people that have been in their shoes before. We are very good at helping both sides of the party. As I say to every client that I have, technically I represent the seller, but I can't do my job well unless I'm looking out for the buyer as well, because again, they're putting their life savings on the line. So we've got to take good care of them and make sure that they're making a good, solid investment. And usually it's their first time, so we have to walk them through the process. Anyone can come to us for a valuation of their business. They can find us at quietlightbrokerage.com, and it's LIGHT. Fill out the valuation form, and one of the experienced advisors, myself or one of the other folks here, will reach out to them within 24 hours and work with them on doing a valuation, some exit planning, in hopes that someday they build their business for a higher value and exit properly.
Wow. When someone contacted your Quiet Light company, would that person just work on their business with person, or will be putting to another staff like that? Or they will work with one person until they finish the process of selling?
We one-on-one the entire way. We don't have a funnel that we put people through and then make a pitch and hand you off to an inexperienced broker. You will work with an experienced broker from day one, from the moment it starts all the way through to closing. There's no handoffs at all.
Thank you. So, clan, there will be more from Joe in a moment. If you are finding Joe's journey interesting and you are ready to hear more, come and listen to the full version of the interview at onlinesuccessjourney.com. If you're on Online Success Journey already, click on part 2 of Joe's journey and you'll get lots of great tips how to build your own business and get evaluated and set it off. And don't forget, you can access all other Online Success Journey interviews and podcasts at the site as well. That's a wrap, clan. Remember, success is a journey, patience and joy.
This is not the end of the journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening to part 1 and want to be sure you know there is a second part to this and every journey podcast at onlinesuccessjourney.com, filled with even more success tips, uplifting stories, and even a bit of fun. There are dozens of episodes only available to the members of the Online Success Journey clan. Check out the website and click on Join the Clan for more information. Patience would like to thank you for listening to this podcast, and she has a free audio gift for you at her website. Go to onlinesuccessjourney.com for instant access to this gift. Of course, you know that listening to the journeys of others helps each of us chart our own path. So make sure you're subscribed to be notified as each new interview is posted. There are so many ways to stay connected to the online success journey and to listen in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we appreciate your help in telling others. One of the best ways to share the benefit you get is to rate and review it at Stitcher and other sites by clicking the stars or completing the ratings form, by clicking thumbs up and leaving a comment on YouTube, or liking and sharing the podcast on social media. To review the podcast within iTunes, simply open iTunes to the podcast, click on Ratings and Reviews, then write a review. On behalf of Patience, and until next time, thanks once more for listening. It is our hope that this podcast will guide you on your own online success journey.